Hey everyone, hope you're doing good, hope you're well. I wanted to come to you today with another story, and this is a story that really touched my heart when I first heard it. And I first heard it told by Krishna Das. I think it was on a video somewhere on YouTube, and it just really touched my heart. And it's entitled "Christ and Hanuman Are One." And many of you may have heard this story, but even if you've heard it before, it's such a powerful teaching also. And it's through the great saint and sage Maharaji Neem Karoli Baba, who I love very, very dearly and is very close to my heart. And the story goes that one devotee was living in America, one young man was living in America, and he was hearing about Maharaji from some of the Westerners that had been with him, like Ramdas and other people that had been to India and spent time with Maharaji and then come back to the West and were speaking about him and all these kind of miraculous things that were happening around. And so eventually, after some time, he managed to get himself to India and find the ashram where Maharaji lived and stayed. And so when this young man, he finally made it to India, he got to the ashram, he saw Maharaji sitting on this takit, on his bench, and he thought, oh my God, I have to have some kind of deep spiritual question to ask him, I have to really, I can't come all this way and not say something to him, so I have to find out, how to meditate. That's what I'll say. How do I meditate? And he thought this was a very good question. He thought this is like a very high question, what's the best way to meditate? And so he, approaches Maharaji, and Maharaji kind of looks at him and kind of says, what do you want? In this very kind of stern way, and the young man says, Maharaji, would you teach me how to meditate? And Maharaji just kind of like stops for a second. He says, meditate like Christ. Jao, go away. And he gets taken and put with all the other Westerners that are sitting on the other courtyard. And as he's sitting there, all the other Westerners, Ramdas and Krishnadas, all these people are there. And they come to him and they say, what did he say? What did he tell you? And he said, well, he told me to meditate like Christ. And so they're all like perplexed, because they've come from a Western culture with Christianity and Catholicism and all this stuff where, we know about Christ in the West a lot. But we've never heard anyone say, meditate like Christ, because Christ never meditated. As far as we know, we never hear of Jesus meditating. So they're a bit perplexed and they're a bit kind of like scratching their heads thinking like, well, what is he on about, Anyway, so the next day they have the opportunity, they're all sitting around Maharaji, and one of them asks Maharaji, they said, Maharaji, you said to meditate like Christ, but how did Christ meditate? And Maharaji kind of puts his head back and he stops, becomes very, very still. And all the devotees that are around him, they said it was as if the entire earth stopped. As if everything just became silent. And as he's sitting with his eyes closed, he has tears slowly rolling down his face. And he opens his eyes and he says, he lost himself in love. He lost himself in love. That's how Christ meditated. And then he kept repeating, he kept saying, he never died, he never died. He never died. He felt no pain. He felt only love. And he lost himself in that love. And then he kept saying Christ, Hanuman, Krishna, all one. Christ, Hanuman, one. And so this was his teaching, it's called Sub-Ek, all one. And he used to do this a lot. He didn't really teach in the form of satsang in that way. He didn't sit with people and speak like that, he wasn't an educated being in that way, But the depth of love and wisdom and understanding within his heart was so profound that he didn't really need to speak so much. Those around him would come to understand just by being in his very presence. And some may say it's the highest teaching, actually. But really, this is the teaching, is that it's all one, As we look out into this world, we see many different forms, many different people from different places, many different beings, many different expressions of life, all these diverse expressions of life. And yet all of them have their roots in the same one source, which is God, which is that which is. And so it brings me to this piece of writing that I wanted to share with you. And it's by Krishnadas. And he says, at that time in my life, I was very interested in methods, trying to find a meditation practice that would liberate me. In those days, we were thinking you had to sit up straight for like 400 years and breathe. I noticed one day sitting with Maharaji that my idea of happiness, which I equated with enlightenment, was someplace where I wouldn't be. Unconsciously, my belief was that this space, or enlightenment, freedom, or nirvana, was somewhere else, and it had nothing to do with me. When Maharaji said to meditate like Christ, that Christ lost himself in love, everyone was included in that. It wasn't somewhere else. It was all-consuming, and it included me. It was love, and love is what we were experiencing in those moments with Maharaji. Unconditional, spacious, all-inclusive love. The Pope never said, Jesus lost himself in love. For my friends who were brought up Catholic, it was guilt, shame, and sin. When Maharaji said that, it changed my thinking. Love, all-inclusive, non-specific, involving each person, including yourself. Lost in love, he became the supreme Atman. He recognized the oneness of it all as love. It's difficult to express the extraordinary space that was generated each time Maharaji talked about Jesus, which he did often. It was as if he was there with Jesus, as if we were all there with Jesus. He talked about how Jesus helped the poor, and all are poor until they are one with Jesus. Always, always, he came back to Sub-Ek. It's all one. Maharaji's devotees came from every religion, every social class. As a siddha, or an enlightened master, he had long ago thrown away his Brahmin thread and recognized no difference between the highest or the lowest in the social order or caste system. And for us, as Westerners, there was never any push for us to change our beliefs, only to recognize the reality of Sub-Ek, all one. So this is the story that I wanted to share with you today, and it's something that is very, very profound and very powerful. It's very easy for us to get caught up in our individual differences, in our ideas and our beliefs, to identify with our culture or our race or our religion or our beliefs or our ideas about life, thinking about life in a certain way. But when we come back to this space, when we come back to Sub-Ek, we start to appreciate the differences, and they become much more superficial. They become very kind of playful on the surface, just like the waves on the ocean, just playing and dancing. But the depth of the ocean, that deep beingness, that's what is felt. and understood. And even though you perceive all this diversity in all these unique expressions and manifestations of life, underlying all of that and the substratum of all of that is that beingness, that love. So hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I hope you enjoyed this story, and big love to all of you, and we look forward to sharing with you physically again very, very soon. Namaste.